Go to our next topic, right?
Okay.
Zillow. Come on, Andy. Here we go. Zillow just changed how listings hit your screen. And not many people are happy about this, Andy.
Well, is it the right people or the wrong people? I think that's up for grabs, huh?
It's going to be a pros and cons, right?
It's going to be a little of both.
Because there's a lot of times where these listing agents don't want to put that house on the market, or the seller doesn't quite have their house on the market ready, right? So they want to kind of have it like a pocket listing or an exclusive listing. So there's going to be pros and cons. And a lot of professional real estate professionals, they're just kind of seeming like Zillow's just trying to take control. Is that fair to us?
There are a number of angles on this topic. So let's first talk about since you mentioned the term pocket listing, let's talk about what that is first, right?
Yeah.
So this is a listing that an agent or an agency will have that they want to offer to someone else in their agency or intra-agency with another agency without having to market it to the public at large. Yeah. There was a way to put the property on the market on Zillow without putting it on MLS, which then means that it's not on MLS to hit the searches for all the other buyers that are also looking for the same set of filtered data to come up on their search. So unless you're searching in Zillow, you wouldn't know about it, okay? So this is an attempt to try to reduce some of that. I understand why Zillow would want to do this as a competitive edge. I understand why people liked it, and I also understand why they dislike it. Because some of that pours into the whole MLS argument altogether. Hey, if I'm paying fees to my realtor association, why are you just giving all that data in the back end to this public page that's marketing it over here? On one hand, it might bring me a buyer, might get me some more exposure, but you're literally giving them all my hard work into MLS out here to the public that is now cross-competing with us for other aspects of the business.
Exactly.
So this thing has a lot of, this thing's kind of like, you know how like oak trees, they're tall and they're really strong, but underneath the ground, there's all these other oak trees that are holding on to each other, like the giant sequoias. This is why they can be so tall, is their interconnected root system underneath the surface. Okay. This is what this is like. You got MLS, you got Zillow, you got Redfin, you got all these other places, and underneath it, like their tentacles, their root system is all like branched together, like a hugging tight, and above ground, they're marketing to you in all these different platforms.
And I get it. I understand, the pros and cons of it too, but we also got to consider the fact that we have a lot of people who are selling their home and they just don't want to put it out there. They just don't want to put it out there. They just don't want the neighbors to really know. They call that kind of a pocket listing / a ghost listing. And that's something Zillow is trying to refrain from. They're just saying, well, then if your home doesn't sell because you had an exclusive, you're not going to put it back on our site. We just don't want it.
Well, the thing about it is those sites exist because of the data that's in MLS to begin with. And then this was kind of like the sidecar, right? So if there's like a motorcycle, there's a sidecar. This is the sidecar where you can still put that data onto Zillow or Redfin to be looked at, or just say Zillow. Let me scratch the Redfin part. You can put that information on Zillow to also market your property without having to go to MLS. So you're bypassing MLS. Now, I understand where there might seem to be an advantage, but I also can understand that people are saying, hey, you're just being sneaky. Like, don't be, don't be sly about it. You either have a place that you're marketing, you're selling, or you don't. Now, here's where there is something, I guess, and I don't know how I feel about this, honestly. What about the for sale by owner? Like, we understand real estate, right? Yeah. If you wanted to sell your house, could you list your house? Yes, you could. Could you hire a transaction coordinator to just do the transaction coordination of your house, and then you can only do half a commission by just paying the buyer, not paying the selling listing agent? Could you do that? Yes, you could. Of course. Now, are you going to put it on MLS? Yeah, maybe. You put it straight on Zillow? Yeah, maybe. Do you want to offer as a pocket listing, private listing? Yeah, maybe. You're kind of cutting out people's choices at that point. So on the other side of the argument, I understand where there may be situations or conditions where this was suitable. But I think in general, the policy will hopefully be more friendly to people trying to sell than a cramping down on the people that are looking to sell. Well,
here's the thing. Compass is already starting a lawsuit. We're always going to just try to find the way of why this is not fair. And, I'm glad somebody's looking at it. Like, let's not let one entity control everything of how we do things. I mean, we've been doing real estate for hundreds of years already. And now this big, giant monster just comes and starts changing the way we're doing things. Remember, the realtors empowered this big company and made it what it is now.
Yeah.
And now they're feeling we're losing control. Well, you should have thought that in the beginning.
You're giving them all the data. Like for anyone who's catching us in this part of the show and you don't know that all the information exists on Zillow because it exists on MLS first, that's how it exists.
Yeah.
So anything on MLS is going to show up there. Now, again, I can sit and listen to everyone's arguments about the benefits about that and the negative aspects of that. That's fine. Everyone's going to have a different opinion. And frankly, everyone's had a different experience on the mortgage and real estate side and on the consumer side. Some people hate Zillow.
Yeah.
Some people love Zillow. I just think that there's a reorienting of who's going to do what and how, because if both are going to continue to exist and let's say have enough fair play to maintain relevance, then some of this stuff's going to have to get massaged out. Just like a couple weeks ago, we talked about the new ADU rules that are coming to San Diego. Well, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. So in San Diego, we gave everyone an inch and some people took a mile and they go, wait, that's too far away. Oh, come back, come all the way back, come back. We gotta have some limitations to this thing. And I think this is kind of that same formula a little bit. They had to readdress the limitations and figure out how to maybe curb some of these like back channel deals that were happening.
I don't know. I just think Zillow just wants to have its cake and eat it, is what it is. They're trying to change these things.
We know that they do.
I'm just, is this a bigger trend toward transparency or control?
That's a great question. What do what would your argument be
Might
for?
be just going to be control. They want to control. They want, for me, my take and everything that I've seen in the years, because remember, I've been in this industry 20 years. I used to see them, they were more of a data. They figured out a way, how do we enter the real estate market? And they entered it. And then they tried it where they were entering, buying, and trying to do the whole fix and flip, and they lost their asses off, where they had to get out. And then we saw Open Door kind of go in there now like, hey, we were pretty kind of successful at this. Why don't we just combine efforts? For me, they're just trying to get realtors out of the space. That's how I feel. For me, it's more control. It's your home. You should be able to put it, advertise it however way you wish.
So I have a question, and I didn't bring this up. I didn't write this down, or it wasn't in my article notes. But do you think that this is an attempt to try to do things above board and force realtors to put all their information on MLS first to raise the standard for which they're seen and which lens? Because I can also see that again, this isn't stated anywhere. I can also see as a software company, they would want to have the competitive edge over Redfin and everyone else, right? So if I wanted to do that, I would want to be first with the new thing or the next thing to have a competitive edge. And if that means that new thing is more, let's say, in line with what would be more favorable, being a good neighbor in the space, then maybe I'd do something like this. I don't know.
But I don't see that.
I'm really stretching.
Yeah,
you can tell I'm really stretching to give them the benefit of the doubt, aren't I?
I know you are. And here, you know what? I even wrote down the pros and cons. Here are the pros. Increasing transparency for buyers.
Okay.
I think that's good. They get to see a little more, like the house is going to be on the market. Cool. It's more visible.
Okay.
Then I have levels of levels the playing field between agents.
Okay.
It's like, okay, I remember that company saying that they always have these exclusive, and what is that really? Is it really exclusive? Because when you see that or you hear that, it makes you feel like you're getting a deal. And really what you're getting is a house that is just not hit the market yet.
Maybe you got the inside track.
There you go. You know what I mean? Reduces confusion and misinformation from buyers searching online. A lot of times, why didn't I see that property? I'm driving around, but I see that property, but why isn't the property, right? So for that, there's the pros. It just really has that transparency, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Here are the cons. It limits agents' flexibility in pre-marketing strategies. A lot of people, they're preparing their property before they put it on the market. Maybe it needs a certain things where people have all this clutter, but they want to start the move now, and start putting it into their Compass and send it to all the realtors there, or LPT Realty, right? Put it right there to all their co-workers where I'm going to put it to you guys first, but I'm going to have this listing coming up, but I'm doing decluttering it, repainting because it needs some work, right? So that's kind of some of the cons there. Sellers lose some control on how their home should be presented at first. And we're talking about that whole decluttering and all that stuff. Could it lead to fewer exclusive deals being shared early on with trusted, buyers? It can. And so I just think those are some of the cons for some of the sellers. You know, it's going to give that approach where I have to hurry up now and put in, and sometimes it's just too much, you know? And these people utilize this because they need to start looking for somebody to buy that home because they already have plans, or they already have job transfers, or they're already they already have an accepted offer on another home elsewhere.
Yeah, they're in a contingent situation.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's just kind of, you know, how do we get around that? So that's all I see with this. And we got to acknowledge that this started already on June 30th.
Yeah.
This is a thing now.
Yeah. And always with a new, when they deploy a new like policy or a new rule and whatever it is, MLS, it's in your county or your state. There's always kind of like this cold period where it was like, well, what do we do? How do we figure this out? Or how do we work with it? Or how do we work around it? And then it eventually like reveals itself and people figure out a creative way to like make it happen or make it work, even though maybe the pressure doesn't seem at first like it's going to actually help you. Yeah. I'm telling you, man, the best salespeople, they're going to figure out a way. They're going to figure out a way, and they're going to use this as an advantage somehow. I guarantee you, someone's going to find an advantage, and they're going to be like first out the gate with it, and they're going to set the course for everyone else following.
You know, and I'm glad that you put it that way because this information serves a seller in a better way. The people who you're going to work with matter. You can now, with understanding these things, going and hire that realtor that really is going to have that, you know, is in the trenches and understands how to maneuver, understands how they're going to be able to get you to that, you know, to achieve that top sales price of what you're looking to obtain when you sell this home, and who's going to sell it in a timely manner. So now you have the proper questions to ask. What's going to be your approach with this new change with Zillow? What would be your new approach? How would you advertise? What's your workaround, et cetera? If needed.
And typically, when I look when I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about this, like typically when there's like big changes in the industry, whether it's compliance or it's licensing or it's even something like this either pulls people up or pushes them out. And yeah, you can. I'm not saying you're going to like leave the industry, but you are going to have to get called upward into whatever's going to be required and expected of you in this new set of rules.
Yeah.
So. Again, I don't want to over like dramatize what it is and what it means, but like someone's going to figure out how to rise above it and work with it. And other people are like, you know what? I just can't. Yeah. I just can't deal with any of this anymore, and I'm done.
Well, listen, Andy, I said on the previous article, knowledge is a new power play. It's what it is. How you put that to work is all entirely up to you.